Are you experiencing pain right now? Are you feeling frustrated, angry, mad, dejected, all of the above because you are invested in gold, silver, and in particular today, the precious metal mining stocks? It has been brutal. I know you get these people that say, oh, you shouldn't react to your emotions and look at the long term. And yes, that's all good and well. I agree 100%. But we also follow what happens to the metals, to the mining stocks on a daily basis, and today has been particularly brutal. Now, I don't know about you, how often you check the price, if it's the first thing you do in the morning, the second or third. It's about the fourth thing that I do in the morning. I have a couple other priorities to attend to, but this morning we checked the price of gold, and hey, it was doing great. It was up $12, $14, $15 per ounce. Then, when the CPI numbers came out, it just got kneecapped, went from being up 15 down to 25, 30, wherever the heck it's at right now. I really don't want to look at it right now. It just took the wind out of, I don't know if you experience this, but just like the most dejecting feeling, like frustrating, mad, kind of mad at myself, mad at, I don't know how to explain it, but just a horrible, horrible feeling. We will survive. You will survive, right? Hopefully you don't have a ton of debt or you're not overly leveraged in the sector. We will survive. I think the story remains in place. Are there anything good? Is there anything good we can look at if we pull out our flashlight and walk down the path a little further and look for some positive things regarding the precious metals? Are there any positive factors out there? Let's go on a little walk today and see if we can find anything positive that's going on. We'll start by talking about the CPI numbers. Maybe we need something to deal with all this stress. Have you ever used a stress ball? Are you familiar with those? Well, I threw mine through my basement window this morning. I mean, if those things worked, wouldn't we all be sitting around a giant ball pit together right now? But we're not. Now, let's take a look at the news that came out this morning. What do you say? We'll look at the CPI report, the big inflation report, the big inflation numbers. I would have swore they would have manipulated the numbers because it's the last big report before the midterm elections, but they didn't. I mean, weren't you kind of expecting that the numbers might look quote unquote good? So it's just really kind of crazy. It makes me wonder, like, what's going on that they actually reported bad numbers. Inflation went up. Now, think about this. I don't know how you feel about this, but we gotta factor in a couple things. We gotta read between the lines and realize that there's some positive things coming down the road when it comes to CPI. Number one, rent. It takes 3 to 6 months for changes in rent prices to filter through to the CPI. Now, 3 to 6 months ago, rents were raging. Now, boots on the ground, when you talk to actually people that are in the apartment leasing business and that type of thing, they will tell you that rents are contracting. So 3 to 6 months from now, that will abate, these higher rent costs. The other thing that's really key for us to remember is that a year ago right now, inflation had not really started to take off. In the coming months, the year-over-year comparisons will become much, much easier because last year in October, November, inflation started to pick up. So these year-over-year numbers won't sound so dramatic like they did this month. We've got 3 more interesting things to talk about, but first, the old sales pitch. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to Ron's Basement. You can do that right here. Now, I know today's gloom and doom. All days aren't gloom and doom. We will have some better days, so please come back. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Today you can say anything, okay? But make sure you come back when things get better because we're going to have a lot of fun here in the basement. Now let's move on with the video. Let's talk about the big midterm elections coming up in less than 4 weeks. We know the Democrats are in huge, huge trouble. I've heard several people mention that something big might happen before the elections, like the Democrats might manufacture some type of crisis or some major news event. The one that I've been predicting, and I've been dead wrong on, so I apologize, but I've been predicting this for several months, is that Joe Biden would fire Jerome Powell. Now, if that were to happen, that would be a big, big news story. However, it's very difficult for the president to fire the head of the Federal Reserve. By the way, have you noticed that the bear behind me is wearing a diaper? I think we can thank my wife Susie for that one. And do you remember the good old days when gold and silver were a hedge against inflation? I mean, do you think it's possible at some point that gold, silver, platinum, palladium, the precious metals, wake up and remember that, oh yeah, inflation is supposed to be a supportive factor for the precious metals? What I'm saying is maybe at some point we stop relying upon this need for the Fed to pivot and just go back to realizing that, yes, gold and silver hold their value and go up in real value when the value of currencies goes down, which is happening, even though the US dollar relative to the yen and the euro, the DXY, is more powerful. Hey, is it more powerful when you go to the grocery store or you go to the gas pump or anywhere else? Gold and silver could revert back. They could get to a point where, like, you know what? We don't need that pivot anymore. Inflation is such a problem. Gold and silver, we're just going to go back to being a hedge against inflation. I don't know. What do you think about that? Is it possible? Is it within the realm of possibilities? And I hate to have to say goodbye to you, my friend, but let's finish on this. Let's go back 3 years. Do you remember 2019? Yes, you were 3 years younger, but not a lick better looking than you are right now. Back then, gold and silver were roughly where they are right now, right? But look at what's transpired over those 3 years. Look how much more contorted, perverted, screwed up, held together with duct tape and bubble gum the world financial and economic system has become. But gold and silver roughly remain in the same range. Now, the other thing to consider when we look back 3 years is the level of geopolitical risk and turmoil, right? That's changed. I mean, have you noticed this giant East versus West? China, Russia, India against the West, United States, Australia, Canada, Europe. Things have gotten really screwed up on both an economic and geopolitical level in the last 3 years, but the price of the precious metals, it hasn't changed much. From a big picture perspective, right? When we look at that, wouldn't we think that there's a support level for the price of the metals? I don't know. One thing for sure, we're going to find out. And I want you to come back to Ron's Basement. I appreciate you giving me your time today, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Basement, live on the log flume with Lily. Lily, say hi.